Welcome back to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Ewell. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the discipline blueprint and transforming your intentions into action.
You are tuning in to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Jesse Ewell. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle. Let's go.
I want to welcome you guys to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into the power of habits and how we can change your discipline. I'm your host, Jesse Ewell. Today, we're going to be talking specifically about discipline. I know this is a big topic, and one of the things that you kind of begin to recognize with discipline is that developing discipline is a skill, and if we understand that it's a skill, then we can always get better at it. We can develop it, and if we take specific steps, we can kind of build the bridge between our goals and our outcomes and what we actually want to accomplish. So this is really about choosing, really about choosing every single day how we can see the process and discipline. And I think, if we think of discipline as a skill, we think of it as like we can build the skill up and kind of develop the muscle in that skill, or we can begin to kind of tear it down if we don't practice it. But either way, we get the ability to kind of choose that. So this is actually kind of part 3 of some video or some podcasts that I've been doing kind of throughout this year. Number 1, I started with, how important it is to have a vision, having a plan, and then I want to kind of tie this in. So if you guys haven't heard those episodes, this will probably make more sense going back and listening to those and kind of tying them all together. So step 1 when it comes to discipline is to have a clear vision. Another way to say that is to basically have clear goals. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of times if we don't have clarity on what we want, where we're going, then, we just are not going to be on track. Okay. And think of it this way, a goal, if we don't have a goal, we don't have a plan. If we don't have a plan, then we don't know where we're going. And so it's very hard to be disciplined if we don't have a goal, if we don't have a vision of where we're going. So we want to make sure that, number 1, we've defined a clear goal, defined a clear outcome, defined a clear result that we're looking for. The overall bigger theme of that is just, hey, here's a vision, right? Because when I'm clear about what I want, where I'm going, it's much easier to begin the process of developing a daily task and kind of non-negotiables. Okay. And so think about it this way. Most people, it's not that they don't know what to do. It's that they don't have a clear vision of where they're going. And so, having the discipline to do specific things every day, it just doesn't make sense. And so you got to have a clear goal. You got to have clear outcomes you're working towards. Now, second part of this is to basically establish choice. What that means is this: we either choose to work towards what we want, or we choose to basically work away from what we want. But just realize this, that we want to establish choice so that we can choose what we're going to do every single day. And the reason why I put this second is because I think it's important that we establish a goal, but I think it's important that we establish choices that we have every single day. And those choices impact how we can improve. You guys have all heard the term 1% better every day. Well, 1% better every day comes down to either choosing to do the work, choosing to do what we said, what's required, or choosing not to do it. But that small effort takes us, closer to our goal, or it gets us further away. But like establishing that choice, I think is really important. Like, hey, if this is what I really said I want, I have a choice, to either do this or not do this. And I think that gets rid of motivation, and when we get rid of motivation, then, it's just a choice. It's like, dude, I don't care if I'm not motivated. In fact, if I'm working towards a goal, I'm going to say that the number one thing that's going to motivate me is making the right choices. The number one thing that's going to demotivate me is making the wrong choices. And so when people a lot of times say like, hey man, I need some motivation, I need some of those things, it's like, dude, why are you choosing to not do the work every day? That's the most demotivating thing that you can actually do. Third piece is to have a plan and preparation. And so, I've done a podcast on this about how important it is to establish a plan, because if we truly, have a goal, we have somewhere we want to go, we have a vision, if we really have established choice, then what we need is a plan, and we need to prep that plan. So whether that's a morning plan, whether that's an evening plan, either way, the only way we can change our habits, the only way we can change our life, the only way we can change to get the outcomes we want is we have to have some type of consistent plan and consistent routine in order for us to get there. So when you commit to the routine, it's really about that routine and that plan drive our choices. Hey, is me getting up today at 5 a.m.? I'm going to give you an example. Once we have established a plan, it's like, hey, we're choosing to either do this plan or we're choosing not to. But that affects the outcome or the results or the goals that I want to get. And so step 3 is when we build the plan, then we have to begin to execute on that plan. And every single day I get to choose, hey, am I gonna do this or am I not gonna do this? And so establishing that begins to help me establish consistency. It begins to help me establish discipline, because the more that I exercise that discipline, the easier it gets, not the harder it gets. And remember this, is a lot of times people think it's hard to be disciplined. It's actually harder to be undisciplined than it is to be disciplined. And what do I mean by that? Think about it. If you skip a workout, let's do 2 things. Number 1, let's imagine you get up every day, you go for a 20-minute walk. It's easier to do that than it is to say, hey, every 4 days a week, I'm going to get up and go for a 20-minute walk, because one is just requiring me to do it no matter what every single day. The other one is like, I only got to do it 4 days a week, but it's giving me time in between to choose something different. And so it's easier for us to be consistent daily than it is to actually go, 3-4 times a week. And so whenever I begin new habits, I always want to develop a consistent routine where it's, I'd rather do something every single day. And I recognize that's easier than doing something 3 or 4 days a week. I do this sometimes with cold plunge. It's actually easier for me to do a cold plunge 7 days in a row than it is for me to do 3 days a week. I'm going to do cold plunge. And I began to recognize that a lot of times when I pick 3 or 4 days a week, I end up maybe doing 1 or 2, because the consistency helps me be more consistent. And that's a huge thing. So planning and preparation are going to be huge. Now, step 4 is to begin to find leverage on yourself. What does that mean? That means that accountability is going to be huge. So we want to be accountable, but we first have to learn how to put leverage on ourselves. So whether that's, telling a friend, a coach, a mentor, accountability is going to be one of the biggest things that allows us to be disciplined, putting leverage on ourselves, telling other people, hey, here's what I'm working on, or here's what I'm working towards. It means that you're putting leverage on telling people what you actually want. So there's a higher level of accountability. There's a higher standard you're doing. And if you tell people that are going to hold you accountable to what you said you wanted, you're going to be able to develop that discipline that much more. So imagine, if I tell 10 people, hey, here's what I'm working on, here's what I'm doing, you're now putting leverage on yourself that says like, hey, I'm actually going to keep my word and do this thing. And that in itself is holding you accountable because you've now said like, hey, these are things that I'm actually doing. And so it forces you to be accountable to not only the people you said, but also to yourself, because nobody wants to state what they're going to do and then not follow through with it. And so putting leverage on yourself allows you to hold yourself more accountable, and it allows you to hold yourself to a higher standard, which both of these things are going to help you be more committed. It's going to help you find ways to turn those goals into a reality. It's going to help you get better results. And we all know this, without accountability, most people will fall off track, especially when it gets hard. Without putting leverage on yourself and telling other people, hey, here's what I'm doing, we don't get leverage. And one of the things I love about coaching is that, when I coach other people to do things that I've done and to, do things that I'm doing, it allows me to not skip out on that. So if I'm telling other people like, hey, you need to do cold plunge every day, it helps hold me accountable to be like, hey, you're telling everybody else to do this. Are you actually doing this? And so that's leverage, is when I'm telling other people either what I'm doing or I'm coaching people on what I'm doing, I'm putting leverage on myself to be like, hey, are you actually doing the things that you're asking other people to do? Because if you're not, you're going to be completely out of integrity. And not only that, you're not going to be as believable when it comes to that. So let's go back through these 4 steps to be more disciplined. Number 1 is you got to have a clear vision. You got to have clear goals. Number 2 is you got to establish choice. And choice it's not about how you feel. It's about either, hey, I'm going to do this and work towards what I said I wanted, or I'm going to work further away. It's about having a plan and being prepared. Discipline is so much easier when you have a plan. And then number 4 is to find leverage or put leverage on yourself, which means that, hey, when I tell other people, here's what I'm going to do, there's a different level of accountability that you have, and you start showing up differently. So if you guys want to find out more about how you can cultivate discipline, if you want to find out more about how you can build consistent routines, get leverage on yourself, and be accountable to what you said you wanted, simply just reach out to me, Jesse at habitbasedlifestyle.com. Remember this, every day is training day, which means we got to train ourselves every day. We got to train our skills every day. And you have the power to ultimately transform your life and be more disciplined, one step, one habit at a time. Until next episode, have a great day.
You are tuning in to the Habit-Based Lifestyle Podcast with your host, Jesse Ewell. This is the Habit-Based Lifestyle. Let's go.